So, Mike, I thought it's an interesting year. I follow recruiting, so Kentucky, Duke, Michigan State, UConn are having very vibrant recruiting years. So I imagine next year the big brands will be back at the top of college basketball. That's my guess. or has the transfer portal created a new phenomena where the San Diego States, the Florida Atlantics, are going forward, going to have older players, elite transfers? How do you view this wacky kind of unique March Madness this year?
Well, I think it's a sign of the times, Colin. And I think there's going to be a mixture, and there are going to be more really good teams. I'm not sure how many great teams, because to be great, I think you have to be together for a little bit, more than 1 year. And so over the years, we've had good recruiting classes, and we've been able to try to mesh them in 1 year, and then a lot of them go. Well, now, when they were talking about one and done, there are about 1,800 one and dones in the transfer portal. And so, no, each year in the last few years, so probably be more this year. And so how can people build chemistry in 1 year? And so the people who go to the transfer portal a lot, they're going to have to spend time trying to figure out how they develop culture. I just think, like, when the year started, I said it's going to be wide open, and I didn't think it would be this wide open, but it's wide open, and I don't think anything's going to change next year.
You know, replacing a legend is hard. I think you did it the right way. You gave it a lot of thought, right? And John Shire, to me, really works. But have you ever thought, okay, because if I'm John Shire, I'm like, okay, I want to be respectful to Coach K and the culture, but what if there's something I really like that really is different than Mike? Like, have you ever thought about replacing you is not the easiest thing in the world?
Well, yeah, I've talked to my wife about it, and at times she said it wouldn't be that hard. But most of the time she said it would be hard. It's not just picking the right person, but giving the amount of time that's needed. John was with me for 9 years, and when he was announced as the head coach, we had a runway of about 17 months before he ever coached. So he could recruit 2 classes on his own. In other words, with them knowing that I'm not going to be the coach, and to develop the relationships that were needed. And I think you saw it this year. He had great relationships with his team, and we had an outstanding year. I've always told him, just be you, man. Being you, a lot of what you are will be us, because we've spent so much time together, but you can't fill someone's shoes. Just be comfortable in the shoes you're wearing, and our culture, and you develop it the way that you think is right. I have all the confidence in the world in John.
I am a big fan of new things, but also regulation, be it Wall Street or tech. I am for the transfer portal and NIL, but there needs to be guardrails for everything. It doesn't matter if it's our freeways, our government, Silicon Valley, or college sports. It was a little, to me, wild west for the first 15 months. It was just the gold rush, right? Is there anything you see so far, if you could make a change and go like on the NIL, let's start with the transfer portal. Because the NIL, some schools are just not going to partake in it, but transfer portal's here for everybody. Is there anything you would say, hey, let's be very careful of this, or maybe alter this?
Yeah, I think, first of all, Colin, both concepts are really good. There were intended consequences that are easy to see. An athlete should be allowed to benefit from their name, image, and likeness. An athlete should have the opportunity to move. And so, okay, that sounds really good. Yeah, but if it's a business, you say, okay, these are the intended consequences. What would be the unintended? In other words, put the guardrails up before you let the horses out. And once they're out, like, I don't see how you can control NIL completely. And it's a free market. Yeah,
Yeah.
like if you have a better NIL than me, what are you going to give it up? Is someone going to put a limit? Where do we put a limit on anybody in our society and how much they make?
Right.
And so the transfer portal, I think it's been confused a little bit with the extra year of COVID. You see, I mean, that combination, NIL, add that to it. And so you have guys who, they're at 3 different schools. They're in a 5-year period. I think the average age was a year and a half older this year than it's normally been for college and for college teams. And the thing that happens too, when these kids stay, there are less scholarships for the high school kids. And so
That's right.
that was not an intended consequence. I think first of all, if we think Congress is going to solve all this, we got to be Looney Tunes here. And but the main thing Congress can do is to make it equitable in every state, which it isn't. Transfer portal is equitable. NIL is not. There's some states that don't allow it. And so it's got to be equal for everybody. And, my big thing, I wish we could take men's and women's basketball and make it its own entity, just like football is.
Yeah.
And be autonomous, have a certain foundation of rules with the NCAA, but let our 2 sports, our sport, be run like a business. Have a marketing plan. Be autonomous. Right. Football is autonomous. The game of basketball is not.
Speaking of the game of basketball, I just read where the NBA is proposing going forward a positionless all-NBA team, and I remember years ago, I worked in Portland. This is a long time ago. Bob Whitsitt was the GM. And I remember Bob, smart guy, saying, Colin, you guys in the media get too caught up on positions. I just want good, long, fast, twitchy basketball players. I don't care. So Bob was about 20 years ahead of me.
Right.
Unintended consequence. I do like an old school point guard who distributes first, scores second. That's me. I'm probably outdated. What do you make of positionless basketball? Or does LeBron make everybody think it's easy? Or the truth is positions are pretty good. It's just LeBron's blown it up because he can do anything.
Well, your love for the point guard. I'm a point guard, so in some essence, you have a love for me, but maybe it's not that big. But the old-fashioned point guard just doesn't exist, or it's like an extinct animal right now. Really, in the late 80s and early 90s, we started at Duke, what I call positionless. I always used to tell my staff and family, look, this isn't a baseball team. There's not a third baseman. They go to a position. Why the heck do we have guards, forwards, and centers? Just introduce them as players. And in other words, like you and I are 2 of the top 4 players on a team, and we are both the 2 guard. Am I only going to play one of us, or am I going to play my 4 best players? I'm going to play both of us. So why put a limit on us saying that, we're 2 guards? We're really good basketball players, and both of us can shoot. I always like saying that because I wasn't referred to as a good shooter. So that analogy, actually, I feel pretty good about it.
Well, you were a defender and you were tough. You had many of the Chris Paul qualities I like, that's where I'm very much about. I like the new basketball. I think it's very, very skilled. I covered Arvydas Sabonis, who was pre-Jokic, almost like a point center.
No, he would have been the greatest player, one of the great. If he was here young, like in his early 20s, he would be one of the top 5 or 10 players in the history of the game. No question about it. You got him later in his probably mid-30s or something like that. Yeah. But he was a great player, not a good player.
Oh, I mean, Mike, he would hit a 24-footer, and he would make a behind-the-back pass. I got the heavy-footed Arvydas Sabonis.
Yes.
Remarkable player and a fun guy to cover. So, do you remember? Because really, what you, Nick Saban, it doesn't matter if it's Boeheim, Mark Few, you're talent accumulators. So, what you're doing is and you're finding kids who aren't fully developed emotionally, physically.
Right.
It's very difficult. A pro football coach, I get 4 years of film through college. I know what he can and can't do. You're taking kids. I blossomed late, I think, in my career. I think a lot of people do. How often do you see a player, and did you know instantly, oh, okay, that person will be a pro? Now, at Duke, I think a lot of people would suggest, oh, it's Duke guys. But you've recruited some 3-star guys in your career. I follow it. How often did you see a LeBron-ish player and go, okay, that's done? Or do players develop more slowly than most of us think?
Yeah, well, there are a few. I mean, you can see Zion, if Grant Hill was in this time.
Yes.
Those players, Jason Tatum, Bagley, Wendell Carter could have probably stayed another year, but no, you can see it. But you also can see like where their bodies. In other words, do they fit the dimensions of an NBA player? Wingspan. It's not just height; it's wingspan, speed. Okay, and then where are they emotionally? We try to recruit kids with good character because they're going to, in order to not just to get there, but to stay, they're going to have balance. And so we're able to see that pretty much with the guards. Like when I saw Tyus Jones the first time, I said, wow, this kid's like a machine. Now he is an old point guard.
Right.
And when he has his name on that ball, when he throws it, you better catch it because he doesn't want to turn it over. When I saw him the first time, I said, I got to have him. I didn't know that he would be a pro right away. I felt that he would be a pro after a while. Mike Dunleavy, when we recruited him, he's out of Portland. And he was 6'6.5", 175, had no hair on his chest, did not shave. 3 years later, he was 6'9.5" and 230.
Yep.
And so there's some guys, Brandon Ingram. When we recruited him, I told his parents, they were going to the McDonald's game. I said, we're not allowed. The first day, the pro people will be there. Your son will be a top 5 draft pick after the workout. And they said, what do you mean? I said, he's got all the dimensions. He's got, not only that, but he can play any position. He can be a guard. And so you can see those type of things and predict them. And some kids you can't. Battier did not fit. He wasn't a great athlete. But after a while, he became, he was intellectually ahead of others. And in today's game, the younger players they're more athletic, but they're not as savvy about the game as the players even 5 years ago. That's something with all the workout guys and that. They're great, but they teach you stuff with the ball. And if we're playing a 40-minute game in college, if you have the ball 3 minutes, that's a lot. So you better learn the game without the ball. You got to learn to get your shot before you get the ball. That's not taught to the level that it used to be. So I think we're getting better athletes, but more under-taught players as far as the game goes.
I always love when the Patriots play the Chiefs. I get a chess match between Belichick's brain and Andy Reid's. I love that. I love when they play. Was there a coach, and maybe it's a well-known coach, it's a Jim Calhoun, it's a Dean Smith, but is there a coach maybe that I wouldn't think of off the top of my head that you loved the intellectual chess match, that he was just move for move? You always knew it was not only between Duke and the team, it was between you and that coach.
Yeah, I think that the frequency of the time he competed against Dean Smith, because he he was a remarkable coach, and he had immense loyalty from his players. He really one of the great coaches of any sport. My buddy Jim Valvano, the spontaneity of doing anything at any time. There was some predictability with some coaches up to a point, and then there was the unpredictability of like Jim. And but sometimes you play against you coach against a team that you say, I don't know if I can coach a team better than John Becker at Vermont, and who year after year just produces that high level of team. I thought one of my good friends, Fran Dunphy, who got back into college coaching, when he was the coach at Penn, he was on a decade movement of just, he got it at a high level. But now, I think you learn from coaching against all different types of people, but those are a few of the ones that made an impact on me.
I remember I was a young sportscaster. I was in Denver. Bobby Hurley had a bout with stomach sickness. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. And so I remember you saying, it could have been to me or a group, because I was in Vegas as a sportscaster.
Right.
And this meant so much to Tark. I can't tell you how much this meant to Tark. You said, we play hard at Duke. I've never seen any team play that hard between Gergerich and Tark. And I covered Tark. You have no idea. You and Mickey were very complimentary of him. It meant so much to him. And I look back at your career, and I think that's one of your great moments, because that team was stocked.
Yeah.
So you lost in Denver the following year. One of your stars was a true freshman. You'd been beaten badly by him the year before. There was a psychology there. Go back to the time you beat UNLV. If I said to you 3 or 4 moments of your career, I remember walking out of that game and thinking, I don't think the media gets what just happened. I thought it was just an incredible moment.
I've done a lot of speaking, and since I retired, I did a couple commercials. I've done some things, and one of the statements in one of the commercials was "close the gap," and we were able to close the gap from 90 to 91. Grant Hill helped us close that gap. So,
yep.
But also the experience, we were pretty good, but then we got to be really good. And the 91 semifinal, Final Four game with Vegas is one of the epic games in the history of our sport.
Yeah.
One, I had Jerry Tarkanian and I were good friends, and I had ultimate respect, because anybody who can get his team to play that hard with that, especially that level of talent, you got to be crazy good. But we were really, really good then. And I thought what helped us in that game was that it was the semifinal, not the final. They had won 45 in a row. They had beaten us. Psychologically, we have an advantage. We do have an advantage. And they had destroyed everybody. And no, not beaten. They
crushed.
Crushed everybody. So we got, we were talking about, if we can get them in the last few minutes, we've been there before. They haven't been there before. And everyone talks about Leitner's shot against Kentucky, and which they should. But one of the defining moments for me was Hurley's shot with just over 2 minutes to go. I think they had gone up by 5, and Tark went to his amoeba defense. And before I could say anything, call out anything, Hurley comes down and he jacks up a 3 and he hits it. So for me, I think in possessions, there were 3 2-point possessions up. His shot knocked it down to 1 2-point possession. It was really one of the biggest shots in my, for my career that a player took, and I didn't call it. I didn't call it. And then we were fortunate. We got their guard fouled out, and Greg Anthony and Leitner hit some free throws, and God bless America, we won.
A lot of sad people in Sin City. Believe me, I was a sportscaster there. I want to pivot to UConn, San Diego State. So
yeah,
I had Duke winning. I felt it would be a hard bracket, a hard march to predict. I didn't think there was a great team. I thought there were a lot of good ones. And then after about 3 games, I just said on the air, okay, UConn's going to win this thing. They're really good. And Hurley, the coach, had said in early January, there's a quote. He said, "You better get us now because we're figuring things out really quick." So I tend to like them over San Diego State. You've had many classic battles with UConn, the toughness of the program, their ability to find talent everywhere. You've watched them in this tournament. If watching them from outside, what makes them good, and why do you think it took them a while to figure it out?
Well, they have a lot of new pieces, and Danny and I are we're really the Hurley family, and our family. We're bonded together. To me, what they've been able to do, they have great depth. Okay, and by the way, I hate when people say there are no blue bloods in the Final Four. You have to be. You have to be kidding me. What Jim Calhoun built, one of the great coaches, but also maybe the greatest builder of a program. Since 1999, they've won 4 national championships. Maybe give them a different color. But certainly they're at the level of all the teams of the few teams that you say are blue bloods. And so what they have is incredible depth. They stay fresh. I've been amazed at their rim protection, their backup center, how good he is. Mm-hmm. And their bench comes off feeling like they're starters. And I think any coach, if they use 8 or 9 players in a game, if they can teach and get across to their players that when you're in, you're not replacing anybody. You be you and have a starter's intellect. I think all of them have starters' intellects, and they're not afraid. They are not afraid. Just like their coach. And I want to commend Danny too, because I've watched him mature as a coach. He's always been a good coach. A lot of times he was fighting referees more than the other team.
Yes, that's right. And he admits that.
Yeah, and he's changed that completely. But and they could keep it going. They have a lot of underclassmen. It'll be interesting to see what happens with a success, maybe a national champion. Will the guys on that team stay? But let's try to win a national championship first.
Well, what strikes me is you say Dan Hurley has changed. You did with one and done. I think the great coaches in my lifetime, Nick Saban, there's a great New York Times article talking about Lane Kiffin. And he and Lane could have battled, but he came to an understanding when Lane was on his staff is, I can't stop these offenses anymore. Years ago, Alabama was known for linebackers. Now they're known for quarterbacks and wide receivers. The world changed.
Right.
And you were very good at that, where the one and done, I think your comment was, well, I started getting beat by him, the one and done, so I might as well take a few to my program. Do you remember the epiphany, Mike, the moment you're in a car, you're talking to Mickey, that you just said, okay, Mike, get over Mike. I got to evolve here.
Right. Well, I don't know if there was one moment, but over a period of time, we stopped. Remember in the late 90s, guys could go. We recruited Kobe Bryant, LeBron left, Kevin Garnett, and so we stopped looking. Like I just did about a month ago, a conversation with LeBron, and he and I are very close. And he said, you didn't recruit me. And I said, I knew I wasn't going to get you. And he started laughing. He said, you're right. And so I had that mentality for a while. And then these guys had to go to college. And I don't know, over a period of time, I said, why aren't we recruiting these guys? But these guys are not different than the guys we recruited. In other words, they got talent, they're pretty good academically, and they got good character. So really, it wasn't that we recruited a different kid. We recruited kids that might go or had a chance to go. And that was a good decision to make. That was a really good decision to make.
Yeah, Stanford admits with some of their best students, if you have an idea, it will beat the diploma. You have to leave early. And I think that to you came with an understanding is, listen, they're all good kids. Some are just going to be able to leave early. Like, that's the world we live in, right?
No, you mentioned, Duke is the same way. There are young men and women here who don't complete their 4 years because after their sophomore year, they're starting a startup company.
Right.
And but we're the one, or kids in other sports, in tennis or golf or whatever. There were kids going early, but because of the spotlight on our program, it appeared that only our guys went early. And now everybody's a one and done. That I love how I love how that's changed.
Finally, before I get to Aflac, there's a lot of things you're going to miss. The camaraderie, although you still have that because you have an office. Right. But is there anything that you think, I don't miss blank?
Now, there's a list of the things I don't miss. The main thing that I don't miss is preparation. In other words, everybody wants to win unless you're an idiot. Do you want to win? Yeah, I want to win. Somebody says I want to lose. Says I'll see you later. I'm going to talk to the person who wants to win.
Right.
And but not as many people prepare to win. I've coached some amazing anal preparers, LeBron, Kobe Bryant, JJ Redick, and I was kind of that way. But also preparing means recruiting. And so much time, it wasn't to change the transfer portal or whatever. It's just too much time. I'm 76 years old and I've coached almost 50 years. I don't miss any of that. And like people say, boy, with the Final Four, I'm excited for these guys. I've been there a lot, won, lost, and now it's okay to watch. The one thing I do miss is the development of a relationship with a young man. And I still keep that somewhat with John Shire. Even though I'm not at practices, I try to keep away in games, so it's his thing. But privately, we talk many, many times, and I've loved that level of relationship that he and I have, and I'll always have that. But I'm okay. I'm busy. I'm happy. I'm doing a lot of speaking all over, and anyway, I've been the luckiest guy in the world, coaching at West Point, Duke, and 11 years with the U.S. You got to be kidding me. It's been an honor to do all those things.
Yeah, I think successful people have a common thread is they are grateful. It's hard. Everything's hard. Parenting's hard. Coaching's hard. Life can be hard. Aging is hard. But you're grateful for it, and you can tell. I think you look great, by the way. The Zoom cameras often don't make people look the greatest. You look healthy. You got. Seriously, you.
I just walked my dog too. That I have a new dog, 1-year-old lab. His name's Coach. I didn't name him, and we have a lot of land, so I love taking him out and running around, and we got him at 8 pounds and 8 weeks at our basketball banquet. He's just over a year old, and now he's 82 pounds.
To the very last, days of my mother's life, a wonderful lady, her animals give her such incredible joy, and I got that from my mom. We've got Buddy and Yossi and Finnegan the cat, and we have a little bit of land in Utah. We got goats and 3 horses, and there's just something about the love. It just keeps you young. They make me laugh.
Does. Yeah. And like this morning, we have some streams here and that. He'll run through streams. He's jumping. And look, I got 2 artificial knees and hips. When he starts doing all that stuff, I said, man, I wish I could do just a little bit of that.
So finally, I love that you're doing Aflac, because I think Saban's really, really fun. We see these football coaches. We see Mike Krzyzewski is very intense, but it's playful. It's fun. I think Aflac gets it, and talk about it.
Well, I love doing it with Dawn Staley. I think she's one of the really great people in sport. And then I love doing it with Aflac because I really believed in what they're doing. I didn't realize there's such a gap between, what insurance pays and then the bill.
Huge.
Amazing. So I got educated. I've been out recruiting too long, and I didn't know that. So they said, we got a goat, we got a duck. It's the Aflac duck, and we got the Gap goat. And I said, all right, let's see how that works. I said, but one stipulation: I'm not going to talk to any animal. Okay, I'm only going to talk to Dawn because I know I'll get it. And the expertise that they put together to put, for these commercials, there are 130 people there. Like you're doing it over and over again. And I laugh with I got some street cred from the commercials, really. And especially being with Dawn, the duck, and the Gap goat. Holy mackerel. Yeah.
Well, about once a year, you and I get a chat, and I've always appreciated, and you text me from time to time. I always appreciate that. I know you're a very busy person. I learn things every time, and Mike, it's been a pleasure to cover you in your career, and I just want to thank you again.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And by the way, I've become a big Las Vegas guy. With US, we practiced there for 11 years, and we go there all the time. And it's ironic. It's ironic that although the first time I coached a U.S. team in an exhibition game there, they did boo me. All right, even though I was the U.S. coach, but I understood it. I didn't take it personally. But Vegas, what they've done with Vegas sports-wise, it's incredible. The Final Four will be there in a short time, and hopefully an NBA team will be there in a short time.
Yeah. Good seeing you, Coach.
All right. Thanks, Colin.